Hello everybody, welcome back to lovely La Cerise, our beautiful little French town. Now a boom town. Sorry, busy town. Isn't that something? We are at level 7 and we are making great strides, guys. And so I thought I'd start this video off a bit different than usual. Instead of jumping straight into time-lapse, I thought I would instead start these videos in normal time and just talk through the changes that have been made recently, and also just show you guys what the city looks like, because I noticed it can be hard to tell when you're just looking at a time lapse or when it's just the cinematics. So here's how it's looking right now. I did a lot of reworking of New Rotterdam, at least it's not much reworking, but a little bit of landscaping here and there, and I'm very happy with how that's turned out. But the big change that occurred last episode, the major change that occurred was that we finally got a train station. We got a train station. And so I am very happy that we finally have some mass transit for the citizens. And in looking at the city, actually, I'm noticing there's a bunch of untapped potential down by the waters. It looks really cool. And wow, I also just noticed this really cool delta region that has a bunch of like flat land and would be really suitable for another community. So I may build another portion of the city around here sometime in the future. But anywho, today we want to focus though on improving the main city. We want to focus on making sure that the people can actually get to the train station. So we are actually going to expand upon our transit network that we've laid out last episode. And by transit network, I mean the train station. We need to get people to the train station, you know, without having to take a car. Because this isn't America, damn it. This is Europe. This is nondescript Europe. It could be France. It could be Netherlands. It could be Sweden. Who knows? We have no idea where we are. But it's somewhere in Europe. So with that, let's jump right in. So, because I was just looking at it, I decided to just complete the little industrial park that I was working on, filling in with both industry and office zoning just to kind of mix things up, and also creating a little plaza on the inside of all this zoning just to make it a bit less hostile of an area. You know, if people are going to work there, you want to at least make it nice, right? You don't want them to have to work in this terrible, pollution-filled wasteland. Of course, it will be pollution-filled because it's a lot of industry, but at least there'll be a couple trees to round things out. And so I did a bit of detailing in this little plaza. And of course, I busted out the line tool once again, which I love. So good. And I got a bit carried away once again, but you know what? Sometimes you gotta, because I really liked how this bush layout turned out. Although weirdly, the bushes started becoming more green in certain parts. Maybe it was because it was becoming summer. Well, it says it's still spring on the lower bar, so maybe not yet. But anyways, this turned out really nice, and hopefully will make the industry feel a bit more at home, I guess. I also filled in a bit more up here, added a little commercial in the corner just for the people working in the factories to get a bit of, you know, lunch break, or maybe if it's an ice cream store, they can get that, maybe a gas station, whatever that turned out to be. Hopefully that will be helpful for them. Because again, I don't want this to be an industrial wasteland. I want it to be nice. I want it to be a nice little industry park. And that's a lesson it took me a while to learn, because in this game I used to, especially when I used to play City Skylines 1, I would zone a bunch of industry in the corner and then be like, all right, you whatever, and then like ignore it, even though that's like a huge part of the city. And if you think about it, it's like almost half of the city, like office and industrial, right? Because all the people who are living there need to work. I mean, I guess take away the commercial, they need to work in industry and in offices. So they're going to need that place. And they don't, and also if half of your, I don't know how much of your life is spent working. It's kind of sad, actually. It's kind of a lot. But I want it to at least be a nice time when you're working. So anyways, I then refocused on Ville de Travail, which is no longer really what it says it is, which is Work City. It is now, I guess you could more aptly named Train Station City. At least that should be what it's called now. I decided to remove these low-density commercial buildings from across the train station. I just felt like it looked bad, and decided to put a little plaza. I did want some high-density housing right across from it, but then I decided, well, I actually did try it, but then the people living there were complaining about pollution, which, I mean, yeah, there used to be a bunch of factories there, so it makes sense. So I decided, what better way to cover that up than to just put a little plaza to allow people to walk around and mill about. And I felt like a little plaza in front of the train station would be nice anyways. So I once again went in with a line tool and plopped some bushes and trees and rows and made it look pretty. I then planted a little bit of commercial in other parts as well, but also removed it from this part too because I really wanted some higher density housing and to make these blocks feel more whole. Because I know the people need commercial, but I really don't like the low density commercial buildings. I think they are the ugliest assets in this game. I mean, I guess they are realistic, like, with the parking lots and the things like that, but I hate how they look. And in a European town like this anyways, it would make a lot more sense, at least near a train station, for there to be like mixed use buildings and things like that. So I went for that instead. And I even, in Sur la Colline, I took out a couple commercial buildings and started zoning up a bit of density there as well. In fact, I put my first high density building right there at the corner, but I made it a 2x2 just to make sure it didn't get too tall, because I did not want to get any like major skyscrapers just yet. I think the city is not quite ready for that. I also moved the police station. It was previously at that street corner, but then I moved it down on top of the ground pollution because that was also causing problems right there. So I decided that would be a good enough place for it. And after using some paths to make sure I could zone the most amount in these weird sort of curved blocks, I then did some more detailing, plopped some more bushes. Today is a bush heavy episode. So be prepared for that. I also redrew this road because I didn't really like how it was curved. I felt like it would make more sense for it to just kind of be right against the train station. Then I noticed there was this huge traffic jam right near the train station. And this was when I really started to realize that we needed to allow people to get to the train station even if they live in another part of the city, like New Rotterdam, If they had to get to the train station, it would be rough. It would be rough. So before I did that, I plopped a little medical care facility because I saw that New Rotterdam really had bad access to healthcare. And then I also noticed that I was losing money. I was hemorrhaging it, for Christ's sake. So I had to raise taxes, unfortunately. I for some reason had taxes really low. They're at like 9% for everything. And so I bumped them up for commercial, industrial, and office zoning because A, I don't want to zone anymore right now, and B, those are pretty easy. Well, secondly, actually, they give me a lot of income, so that's also helpful. And then C, you know, they're not gonna leave. You know, if I increased, well, I mean, they may leave, but I only increased taxes to like 11%, so they'd be fine. I really wanted to make sure, though, that taxes were okay for the people living here, because that is what's most important. And I also drew out some, I finally made some tree farms in the country, in the huge forest near the mines, just to have a bit more resource extraction to boost our economy a little bit more. And of course, I also took out a loan because it was just, things were getting pretty dire. Then, after adjusting the taxes, my budget started to balance out a little bit, and finally, I was in the green again, at least for a little bit. So that was nice. It was now that I finally started thinking about putting down my bus depot, and this was difficult because the bus depot is big and it's also loud. However, the buses need to come from it, right? Because that's where they're stored. So I want it like not in the center of town, but also not too far from town. So I was trying to find the ideal place for that. And I decided in this little area just southeast of Place du Jardin, I thought would be a nice little place for that. And I did have to demolish a little bit of residential to fit it, but hey, that's all right. It's going to happen. And I was ultimately happy with where it ended up. I noticed I was losing money again, so I decreased my service costs for electricity because I realized that I was making way more than I needed with my geothermal power plant. So I just decreased that and things were fine. So finally the budget was back again, and hopefully it would stay like that. And so I decided to put the bus station right next to the bus depot. You know, I did want it to be a bit more central in town, but I had grown too attached to a lot of the places I'd built, and I didn't want this like huge building to kind of demolish that. And it's kind of an ugly building anyway, so I didn't want it to take up that much space anyway. So I thought that would be fine. And so I started drawing out my bus lines. I had a bit of difficulty deciding where I wanted them to go. I created this first one. I knew I wanted to go through Place du Jardin and also Sur la Colline. And then I tried to decide between taking it to the farms or taking it to the rock mines, but then ultimately decided the rock mines was where the bus would go because it employed like something like double the amount, more than double the amount than the farms did. So, sorry, farms. You're just going to have to be car dependent, unfortunately. So that was one line and was pretty happy with that. I then was trying to figure out where I wanted the next line to go. And I really wanted it to go near the college because, you know, if you're a college student, you're not going to have a car, at least not where I went to college. So I thought it would be good to give them bus access. So after drawing out the first line and connecting it all up, I decided the second line would go towards the college. Oh, and I also named the mine area Les Rochers, which literally means the rocks. But anyways, we made Big Town. We had made it to Big Town. So that was exciting, especially because I finally got some money in my coffers. I got 1.9 million or something like that, 1.8 million, or maybe 1.6, who knows. But it was a lot, and I desperately needed it. So that was nice to have. I also put down some post office and mailboxes because I saw the people were a bit upset about that. I then decided it didn't really make sense. Well, I decided it was a bit rough that the industrial area was only connected by one road at the bottom. So I created this other connection sort of by the high school, which, is not my favorite, but I feel like it was sort of a necessity. So, oh well. And also, it was a necessity because I wanted to drag the bus line out there in a way that made sense. So, I wanted to have it go up to the college, but then also go up to this factory area. And yeah, I think this line turned out okay. For each of these lines, well, what I often do in this game is I'll make my bus lines in a circle, but it always ends up kind of confusing about where it's going and how it interacts with other bus lines. So I think I, in the city, want to really focus on making my bus lines linear and, have the bus stops on the same location both ways, just so it's more convenient and less confusing for people. So I would basically just have it go and then loop back. And finally, after finishing my second line, I worked on my third line, which would start at the bus station and then go down to New Rotterdam. This was a pretty short line, but I wanted to at least give the people of New Rotterdam something to work with. And although the bus network isn't ideal, as in it all connects up back to the bus station, which is sort of not really central, I do plan to create a tram network sometime in the future, which will make things a lot easier, especially for those who want to travel down the main avenue and in sur la colline. So I will eventually work on that. I then tried to name this factory area, but literally nothing was coming to me. So I guess Heather Springs is what we were going to stick with for now. But I do not want that to be the final name. That is definitely out of character for this town. So please, in the comments, please let me know if you have any kind of French names or just any kind of name really for that industrial plaza area. Oh, and then I finally unlocked Corundum Condos, which was really exciting, and I was having trouble deciding where I wanted to put it. But I ultimately settled to put it in Sur la Colline because I decided it needed a bit of love. It had been a bit of a while since I'd checked on this part of town, so I was like, you know what? I'll give them something nice. And then also realized I had a ton of demand for residential, and I had completely neglected this little part of town near New Rotterdam, so I decided to put some row houses here. I then realized that this one chunk was extremely steep, and so I decided to try to put this alleyway to be a retaining wall, which I'm not entirely sure how it turned out. I definitely did it. So you guys are gonna have to let me know how you feel about that. I think it cleaned up okay, but I do think it just feels a bit strange. However, it definitely does look better than how it did look with just a massive hill. So I don't know, maybe I could just get rid of those houses and leave that to be some kind of park or something. But you guys are gonna have to let me know how you feel about that. It was now that I realized that the line going from I believe it was the New Rotterdam line, that one of my lines was extremely congested, so I had to do a bit of balancing with all the buses. Oh yeah, actually, that's interesting. It was the line going to New Rotterdam. I guess that makes sense. I think that's probably the greatest population part of the city, because there's all that mixed-use housing everywhere. So I had to make sure all the buses were all right. And then I also made some routes going to other cities so that people could come in a bit easier. I then made sure the districts made sense. I unfortunately reduced the size of Ville de Travail because, well, I thought the kind of medium density buildings near the college should be a part of the college. So I included that there and called it Le Grand École, which I'm pretty sure means the great school, which is again a very lazy name. And you're probably going to notice that all of these names that I do in French are lazy because I have very limited French knowledge because I literally only know it from Duolingo. Yeah, that's right. I don't even know French. But I do think I just like the idea of a European city. So, hey, oh well, right? And when I have to use Google Translate, I will. And that's fine. There's literally nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. So anyways, I kept going around and looking at blocks where I felt like it was kind of just ugly or needed some reworking, and I thought some of these areas sort of near Ville de Travail needed a bit of work, so I just upgraded them to townhomes instead of those single family homes, and I thought it looked a lot more whole. And I do think in the future it would be good for me to expand some low density residential because I've gone a bit ham with the densifying. But also, that being said, it is a European town, so it's not going to have like an insane amount of suburbia like America does. So, it wouldn't be the end of the world if I forget to do that again. I then decided that I needed to finish off New Rotterdam. I had spent so much time on detailing that one center island that I had completely neglected the rest of this district. So I went in and drew paths in the center of each island and once again detailed with the bush line tool. And yes, I had fun. I just think this would be such an amazing part of town to live in. Like you can just walk in the middle and be around nature. Or if you want, you can go to the waterfront and experience that. And it just, I was so happy with it. It was really starting to feel like a neighborhood. And I would see like people walking on the street. And it's just, I was so happy with it. And in this one island, I saw there was like a bunch of space in the middle. So I just put a little park to give the people a little meeting place, a gathering place, if you will. And yeah, I thought that looked really cute. The more I think about it, the more I think I want to completely pedestrianize New Rotterdam. Well, okay, I'm still unsure about it, but like, I think if I were to do it, the first thing I would need to do is create some kind of public transit out there. And sure, we have the buses going out there, but I don't think that's quite enough yet. I think we would have to wait until we have some kind of trams going out there before we do anything crazy like that. Because I don't want them to be completely trapped, of course. Because it is pretty far from the rest of the city, if you were to walk. I then sort of edited I changed where these bus stops were because I saw they had a really small loading zone, which I thought didn't really make sense. And so I tried to give them a little bit more room and put the bus stops in places that made a bit more sense. It made me very happy to see that so many people were using the train station. Like, look how many people are milling about the street. And they're all like crossing the road and using the buses. And I decided I really wanted to make this a pedestrian-friendly area, so I made this road a bus taxi. Well, I don't know if it's bus taxi exclusive or if it's like preferred, but I just wanted to make sure that it was mostly transit vehicles. And yeah, I thought it looked really nice. And I gave the cars, like private vehicles, just a little access point on the side, just so they could access it too. But I thought it was worth it. And although I wasn't the happiest with how the train station had a little bit of dip in the terrain, I just decided to ignore it. And then went back to Sous la Colline and zoned a bit of mixed use housing just to make things feel a bit nicer there. I expanded the college because I saw it was actually completely full. And I also created another elementary school in, what is this park? This is Place du Jardin. Although actually I don't think this was Place du Jardin yet, but I think I later expanded it to that area. This is where I wrapped up on the last island in New Rotterdam and gave them their own little central plaza, which all these islands have, which I think is so cool. I think more blocks should have this. It's just like a little shared community space. That's how I like to think about it. And, you know, if I had access to assets like gazebos and things like that from City Skylines 1, oh my god, I'd be going insane. I'd be putting a little playground in there and things like that. I mean, I guess I could plop a playground, but then I'd have to like draw out an alley, which sometimes is just too much, you know? Sometimes you just want a pavement path, which kind of sucks. I wish you could put a park on a pavement path. I feel like you should be allowed to do that. Like, you're telling me like the park needs water and electricity? I mean, I guess if it did, you could just draw out the lines from that and not have it be on the road. I don't know. Anyways, I looked around and tried to make sure, although I wanted density, I wanted to make sure it didn't look too crazy for the population we had, because, you know, we were only at 10,000, but also we had just hit 10,000, which was pretty cool. But I wanted to make sure that our population of 10,000 didn't feel like it was too crazily densified for this town. But I think it made sense. It was just that one building by the college that I felt was slightly too big. But hopefully it'll grow into the area, or the area will grow into it, or I don't know, maybe something will happen. I also noticed a bit of traffic by the bus station / depot, so I made that road a bus / taxi exclusive, or preferred, or whatever the hell it is. I then decided to put down a little bit of mixed-use housing by the college, just to give them a little bit more. Yeah, it was at this point I was doing a lot of just small edits and just making things look a little bit better, just a little bit of landscaping here and there. More bushes, more paths, galore. I just can't get enough. And it was at this point I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop for now. And then I kept like, oh wait, actually I need more bushes here. Oh, actually I need more trees here. Oh, also the sidewalk needs to be wider here. And it took me a while to just like put it down, because like at a certain point it's just like I want to keep working with it, you know? I want to keep making this city nice, but also you gotta step back. And so I just continued for a little while longer until I finally decided I'd had enough. But it took me a while. Because like, I mean, why wouldn't it, right? It's just looking so nice. It's like really starting to look how I want it to look. You know, like in City Skylines, there's like the city you don't want to build and also the city you do want to build. Like the one, like that, and that's sort of how it started. Like the city on the hill like started off as the city I didn't want to build, whereas New Rotterdam was the city I wanted to build. But after I like crazily detailed out sur la colline, I realized that, you know, any part of the city can be the city that you want to build in City Skylines 2. You just literally have to give it enough time and attention, and it will get there. So, isn't that such a sweet little note to end on? So anyways, this is coming to around the end of the progress I've made for today. So, thank you for watching, and please enjoy some cinematics. Thank you for joining. See ya.